Hey guys, it's again, and I got a tutorial on audio compression, or rather dynamic range compression in audio. And this is kind of a difficult concept for most beginners, so I kind of laid it out in a PowerPoint, so hopefully this helps. A little short thing here. Yeah, like and subscribe. And again, if you liked this, I'd really appreciate it if you could check out my personal productions, and the link will be in the description box. And thanks for watching. So a compressor, it's hard for beginners to really use because it takes a little bit of experience to kind of realize what it sounds like. It's not too hard to realize what it is or how it is done. But how it sounds, it takes a little bit of sort of finesse almost. It took me the longest time to figure out how to do different effects with the compressor, and I guess that's just how it is with everyone. But just keep at it, and you should figure it out. Just kind of through experience, just playing around with it by yourself. So anyways, the basics to most compressors are the ratio, threshold, attack, release, and gain settings. First of all, what we're doing with a compressor is reducing the dynamic range. We're compressing the volume into a specific range, right? So the ratio is the amount of compressing that is done. So for instance, 1:1 means that for every 1 decibel of input above the threshold, 1 decibel is output. 2:1 means for every input of 2 decibels above the threshold, 1 is put out. And for 4:1, every 4 decibels of input, there is 1 decibel of output above the threshold. 2:1 is kind of it's pretty small depending on where the threshold is. 4:1's sort of medium generally depending on where the threshold is. But it's hard to think of compression as more of a effect or kind of a musical device as opposed to this mathematical kind of bland numbers type thing, because before digital recording and digital mixing, compressors were mostly all analog. It was hardware, and it really wasn't all this mathematical. I mean, sure it was to some extent because they had numbers and whatnot, but the earliest ones, it was more about the feeling of it, the sort of the effect that it put on the sound, as opposed to simply compressing the range. And I guess from there I'll go on to attack release, because I'll get into the warming, adding harmonics that compressors sometimes do. Anyways, so first, the attack and release is how long it takes for the compressor to react to an input. So for instance, if you have a snare and you run it through a compressor, and you set the attack for say 200 milliseconds, which is pretty long, the first part of the signal will go through the compressor uncompressed, the transient, I should say, the snap of the snare. And then after 200 milliseconds, the compressor will react and drag it back down. It adds a little bit of a punch to the input. Kind of a neat effect. And then the release is kind of a similar thing. You mess around with, it'll sort of add a nice little pump. If you use it on your mix bus, it'll add a nice little sort of feeling or a nice cohesiveness, depending on how you set the release. Like I said, it's a lot about feeling as opposed to just numbers. It just takes a little bit of experience and time to learn all that. But yeah, happy hunting, I guess. But anyways, just takes practice. So why do you need compression? First, to smooth out or limit peaks within a certain dynamic range. So if you're just sending a mix over to a friend and you don't want any clipping, and there's some clips once in a while, just slap a nice limiter, which is a type of compressor, onto your master, and voila. If you have an infinity to 1 ratio, that means everything that goes above the threshold is just simply turned down, and it doesn't pass that line ever. The dynamic range never passes the threshold. Next is to adjust the dynamics of an input, for like example the transients on a snare that I talked about earlier. Next is as an effect. Back in the old analog days, some producers wouldn't even use compressors. They would, or I shouldn't say they would compress with them, they would run the audio through without even compressing anything, and that nice tubey transistor type effect would take place, and it would add harmonics that weren't there before, but it was really pleasing kind of sound. And then finally, loudness. If you simply do what I said earlier and have an infinity to 1 ratio and cut off all the dynamics of a song, then you turn up the gain on the song, you're going to get a really loud song. That's what loudness wars, and that's what a lot of mastering engineers do nowadays. And you can look up a lot of that on YouTube and the internet, whatnot. So check out the loudness wars or any type of thing like that, and that'll sort of answer those questions. So let me show you a live example of a compressor really quick. So I got my threshold here, also right here. This is a better example. Here is a 1-to-1 ratio, and this is a track by Mako, or I should say this is a vocal track by Mako for a remix I recently did for her. So check it out. Know that it's a secret and that I gotta keep it, but I want the lights on, yeah, I want the lights on, and I don't wanna run away anymore. Leave the lights on, leave the lights on, leave the lights on. So you see, as I mess with the ratio and the threshold, that her dynamics in her voice sort of change, even kind of almost, I don't want to say her inflection, but it sort of is. The feeling of it really changes. I don't know if you can hear through the YouTube compression that goes on or through the cheap condenser mic that I'm using, but you know, there's quite a bit of difference right there, and I tried to set some pretty obvious attack and release times. Let me show you again. Keep it, but I want the lights on, yeah, I want the lights on, and I don't wanna run away anymore. Leave the lights on, leave the lights on, leave the lights on. So there I kind of showed you what you can do as far as loudness, where you just set a really high ratio and then turn the gain up. And it sort of is an unnatural effect on the voice, because we're so used to hearing really dynamic vocals, or rather speech in our everyday lives, that this type of thing is a bit unnatural when used incorrectly, even though compression is very useful when it comes to working with vocals or drums. It's very useful. Alright, but yeah, so like I was saying, here's the visual representation. One more time. Here's the input. And when it's right on this line right here, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. And here's the threshold. When it goes above this line, it becomes a 2-to-5 or 2.5-to-1 ratio right here. So hopefully that sort of makes sense. It's a little confusing at first, but like I said, it just takes a little bit of getting used to, a little of experience. Maybe leave some questions in the comments, and I could probably answer them best I could. But hopefully you learned something, and if you could go online, or sorry, in the description box, and check out my personal productions. I got the link down there. And yeah, pretty much it. I think I'm gonna have a song released pretty soon through Gigabeats record label. Nothing special, but it's pretty good. Nice little banger there. And again, thanks for watching.